This is probably my most used compressor because you can use it on pretty much anything and it's super easy and quick to dial in the sound that you want. So let's look at how to use the Waves CLA76 compressor or any 1176 compressor. So if you don't have this plugin, what I'm going to show you will work with pretty much any 1176 style compressor. Now, this video isn't sponsored by Waves or anything, and if you want to grab the Waves CLA76, it typically goes for around $30 on sale. I first want to go over what a compressor does. So if you're not interested in this, you can skip ahead if you want, but if you're not sure, you should stick around for this part and you'll be able to understand what it is you're doing when you're setting up your compressor. So first, what a compressor does is it controls dynamic range. So say you have a piece of audio that goes from minus 25 dB at the quietest up to minus 1 dB at the loudest. That's a lot of dynamic range, and some of the quieter stuff could get lost in your mix, and some of the higher peaks could really stick out in a mix. So what you want to do with a compressor is kind of squish everything down so it smooths it out and everything's kind of around the same level. So maybe after the compression, your dynamic range will now be between minus 18 dB and minus 5 or something like that, whatever you set it up to be. The idea being you're not going to have huge peaks and you're not going to have great lows. So you want everything to be in around the same level, kind of like you're using a fader on a mixing board to adjust the levels as needed. Say you set the threshold to minus 4 dB on a compressor, it's not going to just chop it off at minus 4 dB. It does still let some of the transients go above minus 4 dB and some of the things are going to be below it. So it's not going to just smooth everything out into a brick. It's going to be a musical process depending on how you set it up, and that's what we're going to look at in this video. And because I'm showing you the Waves CLA76 in this video, let's just talk about that quickly. It's kind of like 4 plugins in one. So you have this Bluey version and you get this Blacky version here. And each one has a mono or stereo component. And the more you use this, you'll probably know which one you like for what kind of source audio, but I do recommend doing an A/B test every time in every project because you never know when one might sound better on a particular source material. Now let's have a look at the 1176 controls, and this one, the Waves CLA76, is laid out very much like the actual hardware 1176, and most of your 1176 plugins are going to be very similar to this. First, let's look at your ratio control. So you have the lowest being 4:1, and it appears that the 20 is your highest setting, but you have this all-in mode right here. And that simulates pressing all of the buttons in on the hardware, which is something that producers do to really kind of crush your audio. So you can go higher than that 20:1 ratio using all buttons in. Typically, I use a 4:1 on almost everything. Sometimes I'll go 8:1. And sometimes if the source material really needs some leveling out, I'll do 12:1. Then if I'm doing parallel processing, I may do 20:1 or all in. It all depends on the source audio and what you want to do. Now let's look at this bigger input control. It's going to control how much of the audio is hitting the compressor detector. So the more you turn it this way, the more compression you're adding. And when you turn it the other way, the less compression you're adding. Or no compression at all when it's all the way down. Maybe you just want the sound of this compressor on your audio. The output control is your makeup gain. So if you're increasing the level, you may want to back this off a bit, or if you're decreasing the level, you may want to increase this. So what you'll want to do is bypass the compressor and then watch the meter in your DAW to see what the levels are like without the compressor on. Then enable the compressor, watch your levels, and adjust as needed. When you get your levels in around the same area, you can actually hear what the compressor is doing to your audio. And then we have our attack and release controls. And these are kind of backwards compared to pretty much every other compressor out there. So when you have them set all the way this way, That's the slowest, and as you increase it, that will be the fastest. On pretty much every other compressor out there, it's the opposite. So what the attack control does is it tells the compressor when to clamp down on the audio. So if it has a slower attack, it's going to clamp down a little later, not as soon as the audio hits that threshold. It's going to allow some audio to go through and then clamp down on it in just a little bit. That way you can keep some of your transients, and that's really important on, say, drums, where you want to keep that snap of the snare or something like that. You want to have a bit slower of an attack. And the release tells the compressor when to let go of the audio. So if you have a faster release, it's going to allow the compressor to compress and then release, compress, release. And you kind of want to time it with your song's beat. So let's just have a look at this drum bus here. So you can see with the slow release, it's kind of always keeping the compressor on. It's never backing off full. You want it so when it's on the offbeat, it's releasing. So let's just dial that in. So you can see that needle there is now going with the time of our song. So another very important part of this plugin is this meter, and it's going to show you how many decibels of gain reduction you're doing. So you just watch it here. Mine's kind of hovering around -3 dB. Sometimes it goes up to around -5, which is fine for our drum bus here. But you can also change what this meter is displaying. So right now I have it on gain reduction, but we can put it for input. Or output. And you can even turn the compressor effect right off. And as we looked at earlier, you can switch between the Blacky and the Bluey version. Then over here, you have these analog settings, and you have 60 Hertz or 50 Hertz hum, and you can enable those if you like. It just adds a little bit of hum to your track. It's very subtle, so you're not really going to use this in like a lo-fi setting where you might want an audible hum in there. Now, one thing that's out of your regular 1176 controls is presets, and your plugins will come with it. The CLA76 comes with a lot of different presets in here, and these may be great. So if you use presets, what you want to do is just kind of use them as starting points, because whoever came up with those, they don't know what audio you're throwing through it. They don't know the levels or anything like that, but you can use them as starting points. So maybe things like your attack and release are set up right in those presets, and maybe even the ratio, and you'll just have to adjust the input and the output controls. Again, just use those as starting points and see what you can come up with. I like to just dial in my settings myself, because with this plugin, it is super easy to do that. So let's look at setting one up right now, and we'll do it with a vocal at first. So you can see just by looking at this waveform, you have some low parts here, then it peaks, then drops down again, some low parts in there. And let's just play the audio in the mix so you can hear what this vocal sounds like in the mix.
Cruising with the top down, I really want you around, but you say you got more important things to do.
You can hear it kind of goes up and down. It's not a level vocal at all. Now I'm going to move over to this part here, and we'll just dial it in from scratch. So I'm going to delete this off the track, load up a new instance. And because we're working with vocals, it's a mono track, not stereo. So I have the mono one there. I know that I like the Bluey on vocals. It kind of brightens up the sound, but we'll start with the Blacky one on there, just so I can try something different. Now, I usually start with a 4:1 ratio, but if you're just starting to get used to compression, you might want to start with a high ratio and kind of put everything in the middle here, and we'll dial it in from here. This way you can actually hear what the compressor's doing, and then we'll kind of back everything off in a bit. So let's do that right now.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride, and they decide to party the whole night through.
So what I'm going to do is just increase this.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends
I'm kind of aiming between -5 and -7, and the odd time it might go up to -10 dB. So that's what I'm aiming for when I'm adjusting the input.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride.
And that looks good right there. So now let's look at the attack setting.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
That's all right there. Now we'll look at the release. And remember, with the release, we want it to go back sort of in time with our song. So let's just listen.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
That's not bad right there. So now we'll kind of do some gain matching here just to see what we've got going on. I'm going to bypass the compressor, see what our levels are like.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they... So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends. So instead I head to the beach drive. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a...
All right, that's in around the same there. And now we can A and B to hear what our compressor's actually doing. Let's start it off.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
You can really hear what the compressor's doing with this 20-to-1 ratio. I'm going to drop it down to 4-to-1 now, so it's a little more gentle.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
And we might have to adjust the attack a little bit
So
now.
instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
That's not too bad right there. Let's see if our levels are still matching.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
Yeah, that's not bad right there.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
And now let's just A and B the Blacky and Bluey.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night.
You can really hear the brightness when we switch to the Bluey, so I'm going to keep it on that. Now let's listen to this in the mix where you're really going to notice the compressor. Let's start with the compressor off.
So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through. So instead I head to the beach drive, 3 friends jump in to catch a ride and they decide to party the whole night through.
That's setting up the compressor on vocals, and it's pretty much the same thing for whatever you're going to set it up on. You want to watch your gain reduction meter here. You want to control the input of the audio, which is going to drive that compressor. And the only difference will be kind of where you want your gain reduction to be. Like on my drum bus, I wanted the gain reduction to be more gentle. So -3 to -5 dB is kind of where I look for my drum bus. Let's just check that out now. We'll hear it in the mix.
Cruising with the top down, I really want you around, but you say you got more important things to do. So instead I head to the beach drive. Three friends jump in to catch a ride, and they decide to party the whole night through.
So grab any 1176 plugin, could be the Waves CLA76 or any one of them, start to mess around with it on your audio and get used to what it's going to add to your audio, and then you're going to master the 1176 and probably use it on everything like I do. Now check out 5 ways you can use the Waves J37 tape saturation plugin in your mixes by clicking the video on the screen. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating, and we'll talk soon.